What's the application for a musician, for a composer, for someone that film scores, for someone that raps? Like, why does this matter?
Why does it
Because
matter?
it seems, and we'll go into a little bit of my experience with NFTs thus far, but
Hmm.
everything that I've been looking at, primarily it's visual components right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Uh-huh.
Primarily it's visual. And maybe that's graphic design, maybe that's photographic, maybe that's, After Effects or something else for 3D and 4D compositions.
Hmm.
Why does it matter for musicians?
That's a great question. And I think that's what has also confused some people is because they're just like, yo, I can screenshot this, I can save the GIF, the JPEG. Why would somebody pay for it? And that's when it comes down to just the actually being able to verify, no, this is the actual authentic piece, by this creator. And so that has some value. But specifically in the world of music, and I'm literally just waiting for Drake, for Travis Scott, for one of these huge dudes to really leverage this. But basically, the royalty component is where I think it's the most powerful. Royalties and copyright as well. And I explained
Royalties for the music
for the
specifically.
music because, as we discussed, just a second ago, any NFT you can set a royalty for,
Mhm.
and that's not, to my understanding, really been as much of a thing in visual artistry or people who do physical art, whether it's sculptures or acrylic blocks or something like that.
No, and even when your stuff goes into a museum, most of the time you're
Hmm.
not getting you're giving a lease fee or you're giving whatever or something goes to auction, you get that one sell. But
Yeah.
that's it. You never if it sells, 10 years from now for
Hmm.
50x, you don't get any of that,
You get
even if
none
your
of it.
name's on it.
You may not even know that it did, right?
Correct.
Because of
They're not gonna
private
tell it. Why would
sales,
they like
you know. And
not gonna
so
share that.
that's the power of having the built-in royalties. So an artist can, because it's been known, a lot of artists find themselves in situations where their deal may not really be the best for them, or they've gone independent, and now it can just be a little trickier to get to market or do something that would have had the same magnitude of exposure that they would
Mhm.
have had with that backing of the major label. So by doing the NFTs, for one, they're scarce, right? So if they're scarce, it's going to lift the potential value to those diehard fans. So maybe somebody used to have 100 million fans, or 50 million, and now they went independent and it's falling down to 5. That's still a lot of damn people. So if they then create something and they limit the quantity of, let's say, this album, or this particular single, whatever it is, to 100 people or to 250 people, it's going to drive the most ravenous, diehard super fans of that artist to this particular work because they want the authentic thing. Think about people when the Life of Pablo tour was going on, they were freaking out over getting the merchandise from this concert because it was just like, yo, this is one of the craziest concert, tours ever. And then on top of that, you have the built-in royalties. So somebody puts their music out. Anytime anybody wants to sell that song down the road, they're going to get a kickback from it. And even if it was just off of that initial sale, let's say an artist wasn't really concerned about the scarcity aspect, but they just wanted to do a direct sale that went straight to them and not to the label, not getting cannibalized through a 360 deal. Let's say they wanted to sell 50,000 copies. They can put out their single or their album, mint 50,000 copies, and then they get the value of all of that sale. Initially, they get it all. And then if anybody wants to now flip one of those in the future, they're going to get the royalty. So if they went with a higher quantity, then there's probably going to be less resale values, but they can get all of the value of what it's sold for up front when they sell those quantities if they're not going through a label, which would already eat some of those profits or recoup what their upfront advance might be. So it can get really interesting. And then particularly for people if they want to start combining digital assets with real world assets, and that's something that we were even talking about before we started recording, because we've been bouncing some ideas back and forth. You've actually been getting into the space minting. I haven't minted anything yet, but you've been out here really
Yeah,
diving deep.
seven or eight things minted in the last like 2 or 3 weeks.
Hmm.
It's interesting though because we haven't seen, and Gary V, Logan Paul, Mark Cuban, a handful of people have talked about exactly what you're talking about, and I believe them when they say that there's going to be more application, just visual
Hmm.
application, and an over index of visual imagery
Yeah.
in the NFT space. However, so far the artists, Neo, um, Bilal, Grimes, a
Hmm.
few other people,
Yeah.
Most of them have done collaborations with the illustrator or
Yeah.
something like that to combine and tap into that fan base, but bring imagery into it and then score in the back.
Mhm.
So it's interesting because it's kind of like if you roll back to one of the first projects that we worked on, that Q with Anderson Howell, it's kind of like, it's almost similar kind of stuff that we were doing there, but now they're releasing these in limited quantity
Yeah.
and actually receiving value, like monetary exchange for them, whereas we were just putting on Instagram. You know,
Yeah.
pretty interesting there.
Yeah. And I think that people are doing that because they're trying to find the best vector into the game, right? And so if you're seeing the visual art sell for high numbers, or it's easier for people to connect to, okay, I'm paying for this thing I can look at. Whereas, because a lot of people before, they weren't collecting art. Collecting art has exclusively really been a thing for high net worth individuals because the barrier to
Rich
entry
people, wealthy
is high. So now that more people are being exposed to art as an asset, as an investment vehicle, it's more natural for them to immediately gravitate toward the visual, and that's kind of that where the subculture has existed thus far. So as more people come in, like Tory Lanez last week or the week before, he did a drop on a platform called Bondly, and so that's where Logan Paul did his Pokemon cards. But he released basically the way that people back in the day, they would have bonus tracks on their deluxe album. So he took some songs that he would only release as these NFTs and then sold them out, within a few minutes, few hours to those hardcore fans. And so as more people play around, as more people experiment, it's a novel way of just taking some type of creative expression, packaging it up, and then identifying how many of them you want to be limited. Because if somebody puts a song on DistroKid, I can't tell DistroKid only stream this 1,000 times. But if I did, what would it do? How would that dynamic work if Drake had an option to say, okay, I'm only going to sell this many albums? His biggest fans would be much more likely to pay a higher fee for access to that album if they knew that they couldn't just get it on demand at any point in time. Now, granted, that's the flip of it. Just because somebody mints an NFT does not mean they cannot still make it available to the broader public. The difference is when you get that NFT, you own it. Versus if it then, so let's take Grimes, what she did the other day. If she took whatever those sonics were and then put them out on Spotify still, there's an argument that it could devalue the NFT. And I'm of that opinion, depending on what level you are. If you have that super fan base, they'll pay whatever, basically. But for people who are burgeoning artists and just kind of coming out, there's even ways, and we've discussed this, and I go into this a little bit more in some of the stuff I talk about on the Native Assets platform, but people could actually use NFTs as a means to copyright themselves and have it be verified on the blockchain that they created something at a certain day and time, or at least they minted it at a certain date and time. So give an example.
Before they released it to the public?
Before they released it, so that there could never be any question or argument about who made what, or did this artist reference this person or steal this thing potentially. So let's really throw it back. Do you remember This Is America?
I do.
Right?
I do remember This Is America, and I do remember the other song that was very, very close to it.
Yeah, so that artist's name was Chase Harley. Let's say Chase had put out that music on the blockchain, right? At that point in time, it's going to be a stamp that says, okay, at this date, at this time, you staked your claim that you created this thing. Whether he sold it or not, it's there, and you can't undo it once you mint it. That's the other thing. Once you mint it, there's no undo button. It's there. Whereas on DistroKid, I can pull my stuff at any time. YouTube can pull my stuff at any time. Spotify can kick me off their platform if they so chose. Right? With these NFTs, you can't just yank it out of the ether, because especially once somebody buys it, you can kick the artist off of the platform. So if I'm on Super Rare, I was actually doing some reading yesterday, and there was some sex workers who started minting art as NFTs. And so it was basically this blog. She was kind of just talking about the shame that was coming with that, because she announces that she's a sex worker, not just somebody creating erotic artwork. And some of these platforms were basically not allowing her to upload some of this art because it was violating their terms of service, right? Now, they can bar you from being on the platform, but once an NFT is minted, it can't be unminted, like I said. If you've bought it, it can't be yanked from your wallet at that point, which is a little bit different than what we've seen with other digital art. And we even saw, you sent this to our group me yesterday, Amazon, and we've spoken about this. Y'all think about the name of the Kindle, Fire. What is kindling? Things that are used to stoke a fire. You need kindle to burn. So if you were to put books on a Kindle, maybe you're trying to burn books. Let's not go there, right? But anyway, Amazon, they have been yanking books from their platform because they're digital things. If somebody bought the digital version of the book, they can wake up, all of a sudden the book's not there. Now, it's hella convenient when it's there and you want to use it, but when you want to make sure you can safeguard something like, I got these incense right here. No one can just okie dokie zap these away because it's a physical thing. Now, that's the other power of NFTs. You make it so that a digital item can effectively always exist in perpetuity on the blockchain. So, yeah, man, I think we're very much at the front end of this. And as bigger people come into the space, people who throw more money at it, there's more minds around it. We're gonna see all types of stuff. Like, think about how popular memes are. What the hell was a meme 10 years ago, man?
Yeah, memes are already on the NFT space too.
You know?
There's a bunch of stuff with Trump, Biden, and everybody else. Election stuff. Beeple did a few things where, the White House was burning, Capitol building was burning, and Trump was, I think, sucking the thumb of Biden or something like something crazy was happening. Pretty interesting though, and I think a lot of people in the space are trying to chase that. I want to be people. And what they don't realize, just like any kind of artist in any space, is that 5,000 days. He's a graphic designer. 5,000 days released a piece every single day on Instagram for 5,000 days. Went back and has minted them, but got paid none to do that. A lot of people thought he was really weird. A lot of people still think he's really weird. It's very funny to me, though, that people are like, oh, well, I could just be the next Beeple. It's just going to take me a few posts to it's people love to say that about Drake. They love to say that about Kanye. They love to say that about anybody that has quote unquote stardom in any space. Like, oh, well, I mean, it can't be that hard, And I even said this to you the other day in the studio when I came over here to record last time, I believe. And I was like, this just sounds so simple. It sounds so simple. And you started breaking it down like, it's not that simple. It's made to sound that way so that you can enjoy it and not think about it, but it's not that simple. And so I think that's something in the NFT space that people got to be aware of, that this is not the space for Sae'Von to try to be James or James try to be Sae'Von or we try to be the lights or Kanye try to be anybody else. I think that the NFT space is a place where we're going to see innovation. We're going to see different types of art. We're going to see, maybe home improvement contracts go to the blockchain, or maybe home improvement consulting services go to the blockchain. And I think there's a lot of things that NFTs are going to be paired with in the physical world that I think, and I mean, there are some people that are evangelizing NFTs that are screaming from the mountaintops and nobody's listening to. Unfortunately or fortunately, those individuals have been right in the past about YouTube, about Wine Library TV, about a few other things. Gary Vee is someone that screams loud and people are very turned off because he curses and what have you, but he is someone that is adamant that NFTs are going to the moon. But he's also adamant that 98% of the things that come through the NFT space and the art side, because people are trying to mimic people like people, is going to be shit.
Yeah. And that's where people have to be careful, because you have that duality of the investment and the speculation side and then the actual utility. And often they don't move in tandem. And so to that point, a lot of people are just going on some of these platforms and buying any old thing, not really thinking about how much it's costing them right then and if it's going to hold its value when they try to sell it, because there's this narrative that, NFTs are going up, 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 up. And so my advice to anybody who's looking to capitalize on the appreciation of this whole NFT subsector of the blockchain industry, you're probably not going to do a very good job of picking pieces of art that are going to go up in value, right? At least ones that are affordable. Now, if you buy a Beeple piece, that motherfucker going up in value, right?
You're going to make a lot of money on that because those resales those are like 3,000% resales every time.
Crazy. Now, that's that whole, exactly. So it's going to be way harder to get it. You have to hope that the platform that they launch on doesn't crash, right?
Like it has every time that he's released anything.
Yeah, So it's like you got some people that are safe bets, but for the most part, it's not really going to do anything. So the easier way to capture that appreciation is to actually find companies, protocols in the NFT space and invest in those.